Hey, welcome to the Ron Johnson Discipleship Podcast.
We're here today to connect the Lordship of Jesus to everyday life. In fact, our motto is to bring Lordship, His Lordship, to life. And the beautiful thing about life is that includes every little detail of our lives. So it's fun to talk about that. We were just chatting this week. What an amazing week we had. In fact, the last podcast that you guys were able to enjoy was right after our market share gathering, which is our gathering of marketplace leaders, all wanting to learn how to implement kingdom principles and really let the Lord be Lord of their business. We had Rodney James come and share at that gathering, and I'm always amazed, Pastor Andrew, that it was a single-digit morning when we got here. It was still pitch black, and yet we had a full house. And there's just a real hunger, I think, for especially people in the marketplace to understand that the kingdom principles that Jesus preached for the church are the same principles that translate in the marketplace and wherever else in life you go, because Jesus is Lord of all.
Yeah.
And there's just a hunger, that is palpable. For people to come out. It's one thing if it's 80 degrees and the sun's shining and there's a warm breeze blowing, but it was cold and it was dark and it was unpleasant to get out of a nice warm bed on a Saturday. But I think we both agree there's a tremendous hunger and need, especially for the church, to provide insight and teaching and support and instruction as it relates to the kingdom and business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had a lot of market shares, not just for entrepreneurs,
right?
But we had a lot of entrepreneurs come out, business owners come out. And one thing I share with the group of business owners because we divided into small groups afterwards, and to a group of about 20 business owners. I
saw that group in the...
Yeah, it was... we underestimated how big that group was. And
which
I told
is exciting. And that wasn't even all of our business owners.
But we wanted to have a good small group discussion. That wasn't small groups. So I told them next time we will divide it into multiple groups. But the point was, when I was talking to them and listening to them share, and one of the comments I had was, I think Rodney mentioned how pastors, senior leaders, often are some of the most friendless, loneliest people.
Yeah.
And I said, I think this is true for business owner entrepreneurs.
I think it's true for leaders in general.
Just if you are at the top and all the weight's on your shoulder, people just often don't understand. People come and get a paycheck. They come and work, and then they go home and they don't think about it.
And I think too, it's not that sometimes leaders don't want to take the time to build relationships. It's just leaders have a lot on their plate, and sometimes they just don't have a lot of extra time or a lot of time, just do nothing time, which is also a problem, because you need to have the margin and things in your life. But I think there's a lot of factors, plus, just the whole idea of who can I really trust, who can I talk to.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, right from the get-go, I don't feel that way in our relationships at Living Stones. I have a lot of great friends. I don't feel lonely, but I know a lot of pastors who are in cultures where if they share anything about themselves that's not perfect, they'll look to be canceled by the congregation. And so it's a dangerous thing to have friends, but it's not a dangerous thing when you have a healthy culture. So
but the truth is, that is the natural slide for when you are a business owner. Is you slide without proactive caution, without proactive efforts to make sure that you don't isolate yourself. That's a natural slide.
Right.
And that's shared by many, many entrepreneurs and business owners. And our point is simply to acknowledge that and say, hey, but you're not called to be alone. You shouldn't be alone.
Right.
And we want to come along you and help provide some type of network. I know everyone's not going to be BFFs forever, right. But to have some type of connection for business owners, and where they can have a safe place where they can share what's really on their heart.
And what we talked about during this COVID couple of years we've been slugging through is that a lot of people are just sick and tired. We have some of these folks in our own church, and maybe they have a business in Illinois and Chicago where government has been super in their business, so to speak.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're just going to either move to a state that's more friendly, which is why we have this massive influx into Indiana, or they're going to start their own business and just not deal with, like we see this with homeschooling. They just don't want to put up with all the protocols and hoops and inconsistencies that we've seen over the last couple of years. So I think what's happening is we're seeing a rise, and this was approved in an article, I think, that just came out in a major newspaper, that entrepreneurs have exploded over the last 2 years because people are realizing, why do I want to put myself under company laws and things that are just binding and inhibiting and actually, hurting the economy, hurting ourselves, hurting our livelihoods. Let's just do it ourselves.
And this comes to an interesting point because personally, this is my personal opinion, small businesses is so crucial for the health of a community and the nation.
Oh, absolutely.
It really builds on the middle class.
Yep.
Not the big corporate structure in which, it's just my personal philosophy. Small business is so important, and I really feel like the COVID situation, whether it's intentional or not, people can debate about all day, has really put wear and tear of small business. Now, large corporations like Amazon and Walmart, man, they're making, they're still able to
and
maintain.
Not to mention the pharmaceutical companies.
Well, yeah, I won't even go there. but small businesses are really, restaurants are closed. I mean, just all the weight on small businesses who sometimes are looking for cash flow from month to month. It's really difficult. But the interesting thing is, if this was some type of attack on small businesses, it's very interesting, like you said. But many people are actually starting their own small businesses, and starting business is not easy. But what we aspire to do and what we like to do is come around some of these small businesses as a church and say, hey, we're here to support you, encourage you, we're here to pray for you, we're here to help you and emotionally, but not just emotionally, just even come alongside and help you process and talk about different operational things. And I mean, that's what we're aspired to do because we feel that's important for our community.
When we saw the government picking favorites and really sticking their nose in an area where it doesn't belong and basically telling business owners, you're essential, you can stay open, you're not essential. We're going to give you government money to help keep you afloat. Sorry, you guys are on your own. I mean, our government, our federal government, state governments were never intended to stick their nose in the private business arena other than creating an even playing field, making sure there's no corruption, etc. But dictating policy and telling you when you can open and when you can't open, this is actually, as we've shared, has the power to destroy one's livelihood, one's family, and certainly one's future. And government has no business doing that. But here's the thing I guess I want to touch on as well, which is why I think market share is so powerful, is we not only want to kingdomize businesses, and we talked about that before. There are people who have Christian principles that are trying to operate a business, or they go, or business owners that go to church on Sunday. But that's not a kingdom business. As you pointed out, a kingdom business is somebody whose life is submitted to the lordship of Jesus, and Jesus is the CEO of the business. I mean, we're saying, Lord, what do you want to do? Lord, give us wisdom here. Lord, certainly how we treat people. I mean, the whole thing from beginning to end is about Christ and his kingdom. Yeah. And what disturbs me, because this hits a little personal for me, we won't mention any names, but I've got family members that work for a company that is known for its Christian values, that is completely caving right now under Biden's OSHA department. The mandate that's pending right now. In fact, we were hoping to have an answer. We're recording this a week ahead of time, so we don't have an answer right now on what the Supreme Court's ruling is going to be on the whole OSHA enforcing businesses with over 100 employees. Everybody's got to be mandated, or vaccinated rather. Then that's a mandate, or you lose your job. And so here we're in this situation I'm talking about. They're basically saying, hey, it doesn't matter. The Bible doesn't say anything about religious exemptions or about vaccination. So we're not going to listen to that. And I mean, this is a Christian company. And basically, at the end of the day, what they're saying is we would rather just roll over and cave in, because here's the other option. They could say, President Biden, thanks for your opinion, but you're not a dictator and you don't have the right to make law determining how we run our business. And then, well, what would happen then? Well, then the government's threatening to fine you. Well, there was another company that I remember a few years back called Hobby Lobby that basically said, we're not going to put abortion in, pay for abortion in our health policy. That of course, was under the Obama administration and Obamacare. And they just said, we cannot do that. And what was their consequence? They were being fined millions of dollars every day. But they stood their ground, they took it to the court, and they won. But they were willing to lose it all instead of losing their integrity and losing their convictions and losing biblical principles. And what concerns me is you have a lot of, and I saw this with Christian universities, they're caving in, especially on sexual ethics, or in this case, caving in on religious liberty, hoping that this is going to go away. Their bottom line is more important than their core values. And at the end of the day, rather than lose money, rather than lose status, rather than lose public opinion polls, they're willing to sell out on their convictions of religious liberty and rights of conscience, which are so huge to every other right that we have. That's why it's called the first freedom. And my concern is, you give a little here and compromise here and compromise here and compromise here, and before you know it, you're trying to get along, right? And you're trying to do what you can to just simply to be a nice neighbor or whatever we couch it in. But at the end of the day, I'm telling you, religious liberty is going to be dead, and whatever Christian convictions you think you have or that you're hoping to demonstrate in the public arena are going to be gone, because the public arena right now is not friendly. The secular environment is not friendly to religious values at all. So I think you're just kicking the can down the highway. And what concerns me is there's amazing Christian young people that are working for this business who are being forced to, number one, give their employer their health history, which is none of their business. And number two, they're being forced to get vaccinated or lose their jobs. And this is a Christian company, I say Christian company, a company that supposedly has Christian values. I'm deeply concerned over the lack of conviction starting in the church, starting in the pulpits, and then flowing out into the marketplace. And so what I share with our business leaders is, I want you to come to a place like Market Share and know that not only are we going to have a common culture to build kingdom businesses, but we're going to fight with you. And as you stand, and as you lead, and as you stand for your convictions, you're not going to be standing alone. We're going to be standing with you. And I think that's important, especially in today's environment, because it's a hostile environment.
Well, and to those who say, "Hey, the vaccination mandate thing," again, we're not here debating the efficacy or the legitimacy of the vaccination. That's not here and there.
Right.
We're talking about a mandate saying, hey, basically, these businesses have to comply with the standard or test weekly and spend a lot of money either yourself or asking people to do it. Is that really within the confines of OSHA? And really, is that within the confines of Congress to make that broad spectrum without any exemption of a vaccination mandate? And for those who don't know, the Fifth Circuit Court, I believe, says no, OSHA doesn't have that. Sixth Circuit Court says, by a 2-1 vote, says yes, they do have that. Now it's in the Supreme Court. So, it's in the Supreme Court because it's a legitimate issue of contention, and it's not just like, oh, of course you should do it. No, if the Supreme Court is actually taking up a case, the fact that it took up a case is saying this is a legitimate issue of debate, and that there's legitimate arguments on both sides. And again, we're not political experts or commentators, nor are we scientific experts to comment on all these different things. We have our own opinions, and one-on-one, I'm going to be a lot more free on sharing those opinions than on a broadcast on certain things that I'm not an expert on, and I'll say that. However, it is a controversial issue, and our opinion is that to mandate and say, hey, get this shot or test or spend lots of money testing weekly or you lose your job is not right.
Right. And
that's beyond the facility of the government to do that.
And that is a worldview issue, and that's why we're talking about it here. We go back to spheres of authority again, and the home, the church, the state, and each of those staying in their prescribed boundaries. That's how you have a healthy society. When one starts encroaching in others' areas and they don't stay in their lane, that's when you get into trouble. Yeah. Now, again, I just got a message last night from a friend who's in the health field. And again, this frustrates the daylight out of me, but so many of these hospitals have the word saint in front of them. I won't mention any of them in particular, but they're called Saint so-and-so because they were founded by Christians and they were founded to promote health. And again, what we're finding right now in this situation was all the nurses had their religious exemptions accepted because nurses are important. They're the frontline workers, and hospitals realize if you mandate vaccinations among nurses, you're going to lose half your staff, and they can't afford to do it. People are going to die. There's going to be lawsuits and all kinds of stuff. And so the nurses are being allowed their freedom of conscience and rights of liberty. But this person who's not a nurse was told, oh, she's not going to be, her rights of conscience are not going to be honored. And I told her, these are grounds for a lawsuit. You can't pick and choose. And in this situation, it's based purely on economics, and it's a utilitarian principle. We have to figure out what we need and where the greatest need is. And we don't want to lose you guys, but you people over in this category who are still employers at the same institution, Christian institution, their rights are not protected. This is the point, folks. These are unalienable, God-given rights that apply to all of us. You can't pick and choose, and you don't get to figure out what your bottom line is and which workers are essential or not essential. Our liberties are not essential and non-essential. You can't put them in categories. They're God-given, and you cannot touch them. Governments cannot touch them. In fact, governments are supposed to protect them. And if we don't start fighting for this, and I encourage everybody in the marketplace, keep fighting, keep standing. We've written about 1,600 letters now, simply validating that we're not anti-vaccine, pro-vaccine. We're saying that the government and the marketplace has no business to fire you over a personal right of conscience kind of decision. And if we lose this on this arena, I'm telling you, we're going to see it erode in every other one of our precious liberties. So maybe enough on that. But I'm excited about market share. I think it is a powerful ministry here that's going to really, really grow. In fact, I really believe God wants us to put prime attention and focus to reaching out to the marketplace even more in the years.
I just want a quick thing I want to share about market share. I put up a graphic on market share on Saturday, and so for those who don't know, we meet once a month and we have a breakfast on Saturday morning. We typically announce in Livingstone's Church, and you can find on our website what's coming up to it. But I put a graphic in which, I just feel the Lord led me to kind of calculate the percentage of time we spend in our waking hours.
And that was really powerful.
Yeah. I took out the sleeping, average about 7 hours a night, for those who have newborns like myself, more like 3.5. But for most people, you sleep around 7 to 8 hours a night. I think you're supposed to get 9, but who really gets 9 hours a night, right? So average about 7 hours a night sleep. I took those hours out because we're sleeping. But in terms of our waking hours, I did a general calculation. Of course, it varies from different people. Typically everyone spends, between 40 to 50 hours a week at work. Then you spend probably 40 hours a week or so at home. And then another 30 or some hours, baseball games and movies and friends and whatnot.
And then
social life. And then, again, the typical Christian spends about 2 to 3 hours at church. Okay, just in general. I'm not talking about people who work a week. Yeah. And not people who work at the church, but just you go to service and you might even attend a life group, but altogether 2 to 3 hours or so.
Right.
So if you really think about that pie chart of your waking hours, if you are only focused on kingdom ministry, if you only see ministry as reduced to time at church, you're only building kingdom. You're only revealing. You're only partnering with God. You're only actively growing in that facility at 2 to 3% of your waking hours.
Right. And yet the vast majority of our time is spent outside of this building.
At home, at work, in your friend's house, at baseball games.
And yet the approach of the typical pastor has been to try to get all of those people who are here for just 2 hours to somehow, hey, we need you in this ministry. We need you to serve, as a greeter. We need you in a children's ministry. In other words, the whole focus of their ministry is just contained in the church box. And we're saying, why is that our strategy when so much of a person's time is spent outside of the four walls of church, except for those that work here?
Let me just say this. I've been accused of being critical before, and trust me, I have been negative in those ways. But that's also part of my gifting, to look at things from a unique perspective.
No, I'm laughing because your gifting is not to be negative. Your gifting is to...
Well, I can be. I have a tendency to be that, but my gifting is also...
You're a positive guy. But you're
I'm learning to be positive.
You're an analyst.
But I look at things from a unique perspective, and that's kind of my makeup. In fact, most sermons I preach, I look at things from a unique perspective, and that's what draws attention Because you look at the same thing 1,000 times and you look from a new perspective, then you learn, you grow. The sermon I preached a couple weeks ago about growth really focuses on that. Why are we not growing? It's because we just keep learning stuff, but we don't integrate what we learn, what we confess with our mouth, what we theologically agree with, and actually live it out in our lives. That is the limiting factor, the cap on our growth. I believe this is one of the major factors, because most pastors, most churches are not going to say, guess what? Ministry only happens on Sunday. Ministry is out there. I mean, people are signing saying, as you're leaving, you're entering the mission field, But what my experience, at least, is that even though we say it, but how often do we truly equip people? Ephesians talk about the apostles, the pastors, and the teachers, is to equip saints for the work of the ministry. It's to equip the people who come to church on Sunday for the real ministry. How often are we truly proactive in equipping people to be ushers of God's kingdom at the workplace? How do you talk to your boss? How do you talk to your coworkers? How can you be on a sales call and be able to look through the views of kingdom?
And how do you let the Holy Spirit, who is God and who is really smart and has all the answers, how do you access the presence of the Holy Spirit and the voice of the Lord in decision making and all the things that you do in the marketplace that are so valuable, and believing that God wants to manifest His glory and His solutions and His power, not just in church, but in the marketplace. That's a radical shift in thinking.
You go back and look at that pie chart. It's like, well, first of all, we need to be building kingdom at our house too. And Living Stones, we have big focus on marriage class and parenting class. We talk about how important it is for Jesus to be the center of your marriage. So we do emphasize that quite a bit, as you should, because you spend many hours at home. However, how about the workplace? And this is, so market share really is our attempt and our effort to really usher in and really be proactive in equipping people who says, you know what, I'm at work a lot. I want that time to be a time of worship and ministry.
And I would like to remind folks too, it was last week's episode with Rodney James, who's a kingdom, he gets kingdom as it relates to running his business. He laid out some principles for us on what that looks like. You can also go back and access a podcast that we did with Rick and Holly Beatonbow from Kingdom at Work and Beatonbow Homes, and we talked again about those kingdom principles, about marketplace and what that looks like. But to me, again, all of this is irrelevant if we do not have religious liberty. I mean, basically, we're told today, if you're doing any business in the public, you have to keep your faith at home. You're not able to bring your faith into how you do business. And again, that is, from our perspective, a huge encroachment by the federal government into the realm of business and private sphere. And you have no liberty if you're not able to express Christ and kingdom principles out there 24/7. That's what religious liberty gives you. It's the right to worship Jesus, love Jesus, live for Jesus, and apply biblical principles out there, not inside the four walls of the church. And this is something we have got to fight for, because it is under attack in a huge way.
Well, the implementation and debate can happen within the context, but the umbrella that we believe in, and that we believe the founders of the Constitution believe in, is God's do not come. Rights do not come from government. Rights come from God. The purpose of government is to protect these rights. Not government. The purpose of government is to create rights or take them away based on common consent and based on mob rule. No. God, rights are from God.
They're based on pure democracy.
Pure democracy.
Simply the
mob
majority
rule.
of the people.
Rule. A bunch of people feel like, hey, this minority group, this minority Christians, or these minority whatever shouldn't have rights. They can take them away. No. Rights come from God, and government's role is to protect these rights. Not to. Now, under that umbrella of protecting our rights, we can have proper debates. But if we don't have that big question answered,
just what you said, though, that's a Christian worldview understanding. And we are in a civil war right now. You and I have talked about this. It is a war. Right now it's being expressed for the most part in the ideological realm and expressed through government policy. But it is a war, and it's clearly there's clearly two sides on this issue, and we need to see, and we as Christians, we need to know which side we land on and why, because there's so much at stake. You were just talking about one of the states out west, which is a very liberal, secular state, talking about forcefully quarantining those who are unvaccinated.
Well, again, I don't have a lot of details. I'm not sure I'm going to get into the details of all that. That's a debate, something going on. That was just a comment, something I saw. I don't know. I have a lot of detail on that.
But in principle, so principle, the government can come knock on your door. Hello, can I see your vaccination card? Well, it's none of your business. Oh, it is our business. Well, we chose not to be vaccinated. Okay. Get in the van, and we're going to drive you off to a place where we're going to quarantine you. Now, this is not science fiction. This is happening in godless nations that don't have the deep Christian worldview roots that we have in America. Yeah. And again, I sometimes I put myself in that situation and wonder, what would I do if somebody tried to take me or take my wife or take my children forcefully out of my home against my wishes? What would I do? I mean, those are scenarios you don't even want to get into, but that's how literal civil wars with like guns and bullets get started, is when governments become aggressive and tyrannical. I pray to God that we don't go that direction in America, but you can certainly see the fault lines and the fracture lines forming as we're a nation divided right now. So enough on that. We've only got a few minutes left on this podcast, about 5 or 10, but let's do an introduction. We're in a really exciting series right now. Yeah. And the big overlay is Now 2.0, where we are looking at a brand new facility that we're about 1.5 to 2 years out from possessing and enjoying. And we realize there's a lot of things that need to happen between now and then inside our church to get people ready, ministries ready, leadership in place, culture set, all kinds of stuff, training. And none of that can happen, first of all, without all of us embracing the value and the wineskin of growth. So, you did an amazing job kicking it off a couple weeks ago, and I encourage you, if you weren't able to be here in person, go to our Living Stones website under the media section and listen to the first week. We'll have 2 weeks on there, but the first week, Pastor Andrew did an amazing job of kicking off basically settling growth. You talked about how we begin with the year characteristically with New Year's resolutions, and then by January 19th. We're flat on our face. Yeah. We've already said, well, I guess that's not going to happen. Why is genuine growth so hard?
Yeah, and there's many reasons for that. But I summarize that genuine growth is so hard because, like all hard things, genuine growth is painful. Yeah. It is absolutely painful. There's no way around it.
Right.
Jesus summarized genuine growth, says, you want to be my disciple, you want to follow me, grow to become more like me, you must take up your cross daily and follow me. And that's an invitation to pain.
Yeah, you brought up a good point. You said sometimes people fall flat on their face, they quit, they sign up and they never follow through because we don't really paint an accurate picture of what's going to be required.
Yeah, we don't take the time to truly set proper expectations. And rarely do people really do that well. And I think if we, whatever project, whatever task we initiate, the leaders of the project need to do a good job setting people for the right expectation to know what they're going to get involved in. Jesus did it. Jesus did it over and over again. He says, are you sure you want to follow me? Because it's going to be very tough. In fact, he says, count the cost. Count the cost. Yeah. Don't try to build a tower and you can't afford it. Don't try to go to war. You're going to lose it.
Yep.
Count the cost. In fact, to follow me is going to be really difficult. However, there's great reward,
right? But
count the cost.
And I think that's part of the solution is you got to keep your eye on the reward. The reward of where you're going is so much more fulfilling. It's better than where you currently are, or else you're just not going to change in the first place. But you touched on something else that I want you to hit on. Mm-hmm. Our mission here at Living Stones is to grow people and multiply leaders. Yeah. And we believe that growth is central to the gospel. Mm-hmm. Talk about that. In other words, growth is not like the icing on the cake. We don't come here and go, hey, who wants to grow this year? Okay, 3 of you. That's really great. No, we're expecting that everybody who's a Christ follower is all in, buys into the concept that we need to grow. Why is growth central to the gospel?
Yeah, I think the theological understanding of that is important. This is something that you have to first get in your head to truly walk that out. And I laid out kind of 3 examples. The first example I gave was because we live in the kingdom. The gospel of Jesus Christ is not just the gospel of going to heaven, salvation. Hey, you got your prayer said, you got your name in heaven, you're good to go. You don't ever have to do anything again. It's the gospel of the kingdom of God. And our job is to partner with God to usher in his kingdom. Yeah. So that's completely different than, hey, you know what, you got your ticket to go to heaven, just wait for the bus to come and I'll take care of everything else. Versus, no, you're enrolled into the army to go and reveal my kingdom to others. So what do you do when you join the army? You don't just sit around. No, you got to get in shape. You got to go to boot camp. You got to get training. Right. You got to get developed. You got to learn. I was watching a Navy SEAL training, which they had to bob their head like in, down the water, back up again, down. I mean, I look at that. I'm getting claustrophobia just watching them train. Elite training.
Right.
for
they have a mission.
They have a powerful mission. But how much more compelling is our mission?
Right.
So your view on how important the kingdom of God is going to determine whether you want to grow so you can be equipped to join that mission.
Right.
So that's a huge factor in whether you value growth or not. The other factor I talked about was simply we're called to become more like Christ.
Right.
And even become more like Christ in that phrasing is saying, hey, we need to develop and grow.
Yeah, you brought out that verse that was so good, that the purpose of our redemption, like God saved us so that we might be conformed into the image of his son. In other words, in God's mind, his purpose in saving you and me was so that he would be able to work in us and through us and watch us grow so that we look and act like Jesus. Yeah. And to deny that or just say, no, I'm good, I'm just going to hang out here, I'm good, is to really deny the purpose for your salvation.
Well, I think one thing that really helped form my theology, and that was reading Randy Alcorn's book on In Light of Eternity, I believe that's the name of the title.
Yeah, great book.
And, just changing the perspective on what heaven looks like when Christ returns. We're not just going to float in the clouds with harps all day. No, we are expanding his glory. We are partnering with him continually. So there's always development, always growth. There's opportunity to become more like Christ into eternity.
Yeah.
So that invitation to grow doesn't end when Christ returns. It continues.
Yeah, that's good.
And so might as well start now. In fact, Jesus talked about how whatever gift and talent's been given to us, we need to steward it well and multiply and grow it.
Yeah.
So that we wouldn't be called wicked servant, lazy servant.
And I think that's the second part of that mission of ours, growing people, multiplying leaders. The multiplying leaders is also embedded in the gospel, because the Great Commission assumes and challenges us, commands us to go make disciples, teaching them to obey Christ in all things. In other words, it's a multiplication vision. You lead me to Christ, and then your job is to disciple me, and then my job is to go do the same. And so that's that whole multiplication of leadership that has to happen, which means we're on a continual growth curve. And you brought out another good point. You and I are finite. Jesus is God. He's infinite. And even after this life, into the next life, we're not going to be static. We will not have arrived. We will not know everything just because we have a glorified body. We will continually be learning, growing, and continually being transformed to be like Jesus, which is, to me, exciting because I love to grow. Talk a little bit, just in closing here. You said there's a big difference between information and true growth, which really involves transformation.
Yeah.
What's that difference, and how do we separate them, the two?
Well, we need to. I said that the reason we don't grow is we confuse learning with growing. Learning is fun. Growing is painful.
Why?
Because you're going to be stretched. You're doing something you've never done before. You're changing. You're pursuing the hardships of changing. I mean, try to find one area of growth that's ever been without pain.
Right.
Physical growth, mental growth, studying for a test has never been fun. Okay, learning a new technique, learning how to play piano, especially in the beginning, is not fun.
Right.
Working out your muscles is never fun. There's no way you can grow, truly grow, without pain. So to say I love growth and I embrace growth is to literally say I embrace pain. I love pain.
And none of us love pain. Change in any way, it always involves pain.
Well, there's one group of people I do know who love pain that I see all the time. It's people who have really developed a regimen of working out.
Yeah.
They get to a point in which, unless they feel the pains of pushing and stretching or whatever,
running or breathing,
they don't even feel like they got a good workout in. But so it's I call it acquired taste. There's certain food you don't like it at first, but you acquire that taste later.
Like blue cheese. You like blue cheese?
I do like blue cheese. It's like certain Chinese food. People make fun of me, but it's an acquired taste. Like the 1,000-year end tofu. I love tofu. But my point is,
you're gonna have to disciple me on some of those.
You can grow into
foods.
the pain of eating tofu. But my point is this: is as you continue to grow, at first it's painful, but once you develop a lifestyle of growth, I've seen this happen over and over again. That you start to embrace the pain because the pain starts to feel good. I know it sounds weird and twisted. This is not some kind of weird, twisted, perverted thing. No, because you have become more like Christ. And your wiring, your nerves, and your emotions have been transformed to say, oh, that's painful, but that's a good pain.
Because in the Bible, when Jesus says, hey, when you suffer for righteousness' sake, he says, rejoice. He
exactly.
Says, you're sharing in me. Right. You're sharing in my lifestyle. You're partnering with me, and that's an acquired taste, right? Because we shy away from anything, trials, tribulations, challenges, persecution. No, I'm not going to go there. But yet, there's a joy even in the midst of that.
Just the truth is, rarely do I see or meet people who are in that realm. But when I do meet them, I see them respond to things different. Like, how was that conversation? It was rough, but man, or how was that transaction? I totally failed. I totally messed up, but man, did I learn a lot from it. That is somebody who really, truly embraced the pain of growth.
And I challenged our folks on Sunday that Living Stones is not a place where you just come and hide. Some churches get big enough you can just hide. I don't care how big we get. We never want people to feel like they can just chill out, sit on the bench, and never feel challenged to continually move towards Jesus and move into their calling and join us on mission. And like we said, we're not looking for people to come sit in chairs on Sunday morning. We're looking for partners. We want people that are going to lock arms with us and grow together and experience a culture of growth where it's fun and it's challenging and sometimes painful, but man, it's fun being a part of a family that's committed. Like we all have our membership at the Y together. We're a family that all goes and works out together. That's spiritually speaking, that's kind of what we're after here at Living Stones. That we're all in and we're helping each other get better. So anyway, we'll get into this a little bit more. So much great information, but it's always fitting at the beginning of a new year to really pause and to say, hey, Lord, what are some areas I need to really be stretched in? I need to grow in. I need to be more like Jesus. I need to change. And we hope that you'll be asking those questions and partnering with us. In fact, in the weeks to come, we're going to get into some really great principles that we think you'll find helpful to your own spiritual journey. So, anything in closing?
No.
Final word, final volley? You good?
Yeah, I want our church. I want the Church of Jesus Christ to really understand that Jesus came to help you grow. That's central to his mission. And when we don't, we have to look at Christ in the face one day and say, hey, he's like, what have you done with every talent and ability I've given you?
Yeah.
That's central to the gospel. That's not just grow older. I say this all the time.
Yeah.
You've been going to church your whole life. You're just growing older.
Yeah.
Let's grow more mature.
Yeah. I had the Lord drop into my mind on Sunday an illustration that I think is a good way to end this. On Facebook right now, there's the you 10 years ago and the you now. And everybody's posting pictures. And, of course, all you're seeing is external change.
Right.
And what would be really great is if we could have a Holy Spirit version of you 10 years ago and you now that would really show how's your character changed, how are you more like Jesus, how have you grown in your understanding, is your passion for God stronger than it was 10 years ago, how about your fruitfulness, how about the impact of your life 10 years ago till now, has there been tangible fruit, a demonstration of godliness that's produced fruit in other people's lives? That would be a great Facebook challenge.
I'll challenge to have your wife be the person who says, hey, 10 years later, my husband is no longer this, or he's still this. I don't know how it's going to catch on fire, but hey, that's a great metric for growth, is ask someone who's the closest to you and ask them for the truth. So
you're exactly right. And marriage class 4:00 Sunday afternoons out there, because our spouses are really a great help to help us see our blind spots and to truly help us grow. So anyway, thanks for tuning in today. We are committed to your growth. We love to hear your comments, and we love it when you share this podcast with others. We're always trying to grow our outreach and reach more people with the message of the Lordship of Jesus Christ. So thanks again for tuning in. We love you, we value you, and we're praying for you to grow incredibly in this coming year, as that's our desire as well. So have a great week. Until next Thursday, we'll see you then.